So in this video I'm going to tell you guys all the mods you could do to a pocket bike to get it to go faster. One thing you could do is adjust the brakes. Make sure that they do not grab as it's free rolling. Lift it up and spin the front wheel. You could tighten the brake lever down a little bit here. See what the brake lever is? Tighten it down and go back to your wheel. Spin it and keep tightening it until it starts rubbing. Once it starts rubbing, back it off a little bit and you have a good tension for your brakes. Another thing you could do to make your pocket bike faster is to redo the bearings. Take the wheels off, pop these bearings off, and soak them in some acetone or some alcohol and spin them a little bit, get them cleaned, and then let them dry. And then take them and once they're dry, heat them up, make sure they're completely cleaned, and soak them in motor oil. Let them soak there for a couple days, spin them around in motor oil. Some bearings like this have metal seals. See how here you can't really pry it open and get to the actual balls of the bearing? This works great because motor oil will penetrate through here and lube the bearing in any case. Another way to make your pocket bike faster is to simply inflate the tires. Just make it hard to the factory specs. Look on the side of the tire to make sure you don't overinflate it, because then it'll bulge out and have a bump and it won't be circular anymore. Another way to make your pocket bike faster is to take off your ignition and take your flywheel, and if it's really old then you might find some corrosion. Now how a flywheel works is every time it spins around, see it's got magnets, it's holding this ignition on. Every time it spins around and the magnets come in the same position as right here, and it tells the ignition when to fire. So if it's not reading it very clearly, maybe it's not firing as strong as it should. Check your connections, make sure there's no corrosion, and check the distance between here and here. How to do that? Here I have a card 3x5, and what I do is I fold it, because you don't want it too close. Remember, as it spins it expands microscopically, but it does. And you take it, and this is after you cleaned it. You get a little steel wool, you can get a wire brush, anything. Just clean it, and then once it's cleaned, spray some WD-40 because it repels water and keeps it from getting messed up again. And you take your card, you put it over, and you take your ignition, you put it over, and you press them as close together as you can and tighten everything. That's how you get it distance really well. And once you're done, slip your card out and you're good to go. Another mod you can do is clean your chain. Clean it and use good lube for it. I know Go-Kart lube is extremely good for pocket bike chains. They're designed for high RPM, high pressure, and they're pretty much used on roads just as pocket bikes are. So I know Motul makes really good lube. Some dirt bike companies make good lube. It should help improve the speed of the pocket bike. Another thing you can do is take your gas tank, remove the fuel lines from it, and upgrade your fuel filter. Here I have a stock fuel filter, really small and restrictive for the fuel flow, and here I have an aftermarket fuel filter. Try to find the smallest one you can, because these ones are small themselves, and make it work with the wiring, with the fuel line you have, because the only reason I like it is because it's clear. You could see if fuel is flowing through it. But if you can't, you might have to buy another fuel line. They're not too expensive, but it's hard to find small fuel lines. For this one, all I did was I ended up milling out the inside diameter of the tube a little bit, and without modifying the fuel line, made it slip right through. And it's in there pretty tight, so I don't have to worry about it leaking. This will help improve throttle response and I think acceleration. Another thing you could do is to clean out your carb. Here I have a stock carb. It works as good as I need it to. I've cleaned it out. I taped up any holes that expose the insides of it. Cleaning it out helps fuel flow through it faster and um, helps you improve your throttle response. It pretty much does exactly what a fuel filter would do, except it's instead of buying something, you just clean it. Another thing you could do is check your throttle cable for the throttle. When it's all the way pulled back, you want it to be all the way pulled forward. That's that. What this does is all that limited speed, the potential speed you had is now unlocked. You pretty much, and now you have the full potential of the bike again. Another thing you could do is to clean up your clutch. Take a wire brush or some sandpaper, something abrasive. Clean out all the dust you can find in there. Spray some brake cleaner. You get your pad, clean it up with sandpaper if you want. All I used is a brass brush because I didn't want to mess up the compound on it. You clean it up, clean it with a brake cleaner, and slap it all together just as it was. That'll improve the grab of the clutch, making it so that it can get to top speed faster. Another thing you can do is remove friction from the shaft of the sprocket. Here, I'll show you what I mean. So when a sprocket sits on here, it should be snug, because with chain tension, every time it rotates, it'll shift. Let's say, okay, say it's going this way. Chain tension is pulling the sprocket that way. Instead of sitting on it at one position, it'll always be pushed that way. So, in a sense, it will be spinning like it'll be rolling on its axle, rolling around so that the side that's getting the tension will always be pushed to the axle. This causes unnecessary friction. To fix this, all you need is some expanding glue and some cleaners to clean off the axle and the sprocket itself, the inside of it. What I use is Gorilla Glue or any type of glue that's expandable. Follow the directions and you should be fine. Another thing you can do is you could do an electric start delete if your motor has an electric start. Now these cause a lot of friction. The reason why is because it has insanely strong magnets that keep the shaft from spinning as high RPM as it can. It kind of pulls the shaft in a way which makes it harder for it to spin freely. This is actually pressed onto the shaft itself, which I have here. It's pressed onto here like this. Imagine it pressed. So to get it unpressed, remember that bolt you took from the inside here? You take that bolt and you find a thread exactly the same as the thread of the inside here. Once you find that thread, make sure the bolt is a little bit longer. Like, longer is better for this situation. Because when you thread it in, you're pretty much pressing that axle that it's on, you're pressing it off. You're unscrewing it, screwing it, it's pressed off. Once it's pressed off, you can yank this out and it'll come out with this guy, and all you have to do really is take these magnets out. But if you want to go further and remove dead weight, you can actually cut this guy in half, remove this steel axle in here, and insert it into the shaft again and do a complete delete. So this is all hollow, all except for the shaft. Then mount your pull start onto it and get your bike working again. What this does is it removes friction and it removes dead weight. Another thing you can do is buy a new spark plug. The difference in spark plugs is that a new spark plug has better material, cleaner material. It's not corroded, and it sparks better. That'll help improve fuel consumption. If you index it right, it'll help improve firepower of the cylinder, giving you higher speeds, higher acceleration. Another improvement you can do is indexing your spark plug. Index it. You look at the tip. You draw a line at the end of the cylinder exposed part where you can see the line. Make it so that's the noticeable line. And then when you tighten it, thinking of that line, you make sure it's facing the right direction. So let's say I marked it right up here. See how it is? So right here. Then when I go to tighten it, I'll make sure it's facing up, that line. Bam. So that line better be right here for it to be indexed, or else if it isn't, it's not going to work. Now let's say you index it and you tighten it, but you have to tighten it either extremely tight or extremely loose to get it indexed right. Don't worry. What I did here is I took some, you could take aluminum foil, or if you're lucky like me, I have metal tape, and cut a couple strings and lay them on here to space it out. When you get the right amount of spacing and index perfectly, you will notice a power increase in your motor if you haven't done so before. Another thing you can do is go out and buy an air filter, upgraded air filter. Here I have a K&N air filter. It's gigantic, I know, but I got it to work. It'll be running on my bike. What this does is it improves airflow to the motor, giving it so you'll have more power. Another thing you can do is get one of these. Well, I made this, but what it basically is a velocity stack. What a velocity stack is the portion of the carburetor where it attaches the air filter to the carburetor. Now what a velocity stack's job is to funnel the air into the carburetor. You can see I've built a pretty cool looking funnel here. It's all fiberglass, handmade. And what it does is it chambers all the air into a single tube, increasing the speed of the air and increasing the concentration of air that's flowing into the motor. Another thing you can do is buy an exhaust. Here I have an exhaust. It's not sure what company exhaust can improve this. An exhaust will improve speed and will improve acceleration. On 2 strokes, an exhaust is pretty much everything because of the expansion chamber and how the motor works. So getting an exhaust for a 2-stroke is going to do a lot of improvement.